Coral bleaching endangers not only coral reefs, but also many parts of the ecosystem. I discussed the impact with Stephanie Ware of the U.S.-based Nature Conservancy. She's lead scientist at the Coral Reef Conservation Program there.
So coral reefs can absolutely recover. I've witnessed it myself in my professional career, the recovery of coral reefs. It can take time. The amount of time really varies on where you are in the world. For example, the coral reefs that are in the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean recover much faster because of the fast growth rates of those corals. In the Caribbean, it can take much longer. Those corals grow much slower, and it just takes longer for them to recover.
You know, warming waters has this kind of impact on coral reefs. What about the impact on other types of marine life?
For corals, they are incredibly sensitive organisms. They have to live in a very narrow temperature range. So they really show the stress of the warming water before anything else does. But we know that the warming water also impacts reproductive behavior, whether migration behavior of different species of fish. It has a lot of different impacts. It's not just affecting coral reefs.
You know, a lot of people might be asking, why should we care? Is there sort of a medical potential for coral reefs?
Medical is one of them. Coral reefs provide 500 million people food, their primary source of protein. They protect 200 million people on coastlines. There's about 200,000 kilometers of coastline that are actually protected by coral reefs. So they provide food, they provide jobs, they provide coastal protection. The medical aspect of coral reefs is really interesting. I think of them as the medicine chests of the sea. On a coral reef, chemistry really is the language of life. It's how coral organisms, coral animals, and coral reef animals communicate with each other. They need to know whether their neighbor is their next meal or their next mate. It's a very important distinction. You don't want to eat your next mate. So scientists have actually been studying all of these compounds that coral animals and coral reef associated animals produce and have been developing them into life-saving medicines. So there's actually a very common cancer drug that has been on the market since the 70s to treat lymphoma. So most people know somebody that has benefited from medicines that come from a coral reef. They're also getting drugs to treat HIV, Alzheimer's, and even pain medicines.
So Stephanie, talk to us about efforts to stop coral bleaching, and what can people do?
So unfortunately, once a coral bleaching event is underway, we can't really stop it. We can do things to minimize the impacts by keeping people away from reefs that are bleaching. But what we really need to do is prevent this from happening to begin with. So we need to reduce the big stressors to coral reefs, which are overfishing, coastal development. For anybody sitting at home watching, something they can do is reduce your meat consumption. That goes a great long way to reducing your own personal contribution to greenhouse gas emissions. You can also choose ocean-friendly seafood. But, you know, ultimately, we're going to have to reduce those greenhouse gas emissions. We're going to have to do it now. Huge step was taken with the Paris Accord this weekend. It's going to go a long way to securing the future of coral reefs, but most importantly, securing the future of our habitat to make this a livable planet for all of us.